Our last story tonight is about a man called Philip Paxson, a medical device salesman and father of two from North Carolina in the US. Last year, this month, he was driving home after his daughter's 9th birthday party at a friend's house. He was in an unfamiliar neighborhood. It was dark and raining, so he relied on Google Maps for directions. You know, Google's web mapping platform. The app directed Paxson to cross a bridge, but he drove off its unguarded edge and crashed about 20 feet below. He drowned and died. You see, Paxson was trying to cross what's called the bridge to nowhere. It had collapsed a decade ago, but the Google map was not updated. And now Paxson's family has sued Google for negligence. So is Google to blame for what happened? Is this the first time it has dangerously misdirected someone? Our next report tells you.
Google was birthed in 1998, and since then, it has revolutionized how people find information online. In the decade since, it has amassed billions of users. A large number of them the world over use this service, Google Maps. It was launched in 2005, and it tells us where we are and where we're going. Not spiritually, of course. Today, it's used by over 1 billion people every month. They turn to the service to find their way to cafes, to friends' birthday parties, and to look up nearby monuments. How does Google know the lay of the land? It uses a bunch of tools to draw up its maps. It collects data from a combination of satellite imagery, street photography, and user-generated data. The last bit is where a user tells Google if the road to her home is under construction, or if there's traffic on the street, even if a local business is shifting locations. According to Google, its maps are updated constantly, every second of every day. But that doesn't mean Google updates everything. And sometimes this can lead to a tragedy. Like in the case of this bridge. It's called the bridge to nowhere because quite literally, it's just that. The bridge collapsed a decade ago, but this information was not updated on Google Maps. And last year, Philip Paxson bore the brunt of this. Paxson was a medical device salesman and father of two from North Carolina. He was driving back home in his truck after winding up his daughter's 9th birthday party at a friend's place. He was driving in an unfamiliar neighborhood. It was dark and raining, so he used Google Maps to lead him home. But the app directed him to this bridge, told him to cross it, and he fell off its unguarded edge. He crashed about 20 feet below into the creek, and Paxson drowned to death. And according to the suit, it was Google's responsibility to mention that it hadn't been. How has Google reacted to the incident? Currently, it's reviewing the allegations, saying that Google's goal is to provide accurate routing information. But here's the thing. Sometimes it isn't as accurate as Google may want it to be. Philip Paxson isn't the first person whose death has been tied to Google Maps. In 2020, an 18-year-old Russian froze to death. The boy and his friend were stranded in this vehicle for a week. Google Maps sent them on a disused shortcut in the world's coldest inhabited region. It's called the Road of Bones. Now, death is the worst-case scenario, but Google Maps regularly and dangerously misdirects users. In 2019, a truck driver in Indonesia drove off a cliff. He followed Google Maps on a route meant for motorcycles. Last month, a woman in Australia nosedived into a ditch after following the service. There are similar cases everywhere. The question is it entirely Google's fault? Well, the jury is still out on that. Some say Google is a free tool, merely meant for reference, and it holds no responsibility. Then there are others who claim that people's dependence on the service is increasing, so the app must be held accountable. After all, one doesn't let social media apps get off the hook for misinformation simply because they're free to use. While we wait for the court decision in the Philip Paxson case, in the meantime, we'll say, use Google Maps, but use your discretion. Because sometimes the road not taken does make all the difference between life and death.